What if the healing that you are strongly desiring is not hidden in a lab? It's not hidden in a pill. It's not hidden anywhere but maybe somewhere within you. What if there was a little button that you can turn on and turn off? And what if everything that you needed to have a healthy body was right underneath your feet, maybe underneath your nose? You never know. So today we're going to be talking about God's pharmacy, everything that was created on this earth and more, because we're going to also talk about peptides, because we can't have our guest today without talking about peptides. So today in the classroom, we will explore the divine blueprint of healing. And I know, yes, I said the word healing with Dr. Tracey Stroup. She's a naturopathic doctor, and she is a passionate voice when it comes to natural wellness. She is someone that I met and quickly knew that I wanted to have her in the classroom when she spoke at the Annie Appleseed Conference. And today we're going to be talking about some of the key ideas of how God has created this earth to keep our body healed, that if we give the body what it needs. And so make sure you go get your paper and you get your pencils because we're going to take lots of notes today and we're going to learn and grow together.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lillian McDermott, and I am a certified life coach. I am a certified holistic cancer coach and the host of the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. If you are coming to the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Well, as I mentioned before, not only did I get to listen to Dr. Tracey Stroup, but I also have a copy of her book, The Mommy Apothecary Home Health Resource Guide. And I was thumbing it through it yesterday as I was preparing for today's class and looking at all the stuff that she had talked about at the conference. And I thought, we're in for a treat. So fasten your seatbelt because we're in for a wonderful treat. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so grateful that Tracey Stroup, ND, is here to do just that. Thank you so much for coming into the classroom today.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to be here. So I appreciate everything that you do to keep teaching people about all the ways to take care of their bodies naturally.
Well, thank you. And normally, and when we've had people, with the exception of Dr. Lorraine Day, who was my mentor, I loved her. I don't know if you know who she was, or to me, she still is. But she was a dynamo that talked about how everything we needed was from God, everything we created. And so the thing that just jumped out at me in your book was page number 9, God's Pharmacy. And
Yeah.
so I said, you know what? Many people need to understand that before we reach for that pill, my registered service mark is you could take a pill, you could take responsibility. And before we reach for that pill, that we need to see what our Creator has created for us to make our life so much easier. So I'd love to hear from you and I'd love for you to share, your background and what led you to become a naturopathic doctor.
Yeah. So initially, I started out in the fitness industry. So I have a degree in exercise science, minor in food science nutrition, and had always been overweight as a kid. So that's kind of my first story. When I graduated, I had a really amazing career in fitness, did a lot of bodybuilding shows, etc., helped many people attain a healthy weight. But there was always a little bit something missing. We could exercise and exercise. Some people would lose, some people wouldn't. They have to cut massive calories, and it just had such a state of deprivation wrapped around it. It wasn't enjoyable. People would walk into my studio and be like, "Oh, okay, what are we doing today?" And it wasn't excitement and joy to really embrace their health. And then I got married and I had my first son. And I just wanted better for him. I chose not to vaccinate. And because of that, I really felt that I needed to learn how to better protect him, build his immune system, make sure he was a healthy child, feed him the right food, etc. So I went back to school to become a naturopathic doctor. And that's kind of how I lived my life ever since. I mean, don't get me wrong, my kids like to bother me for pizza and bad foods, and they like all the normal things other kids like. It's just that we do teach them in this house that the body is a temple, it's the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we want to treat it that way. So it doesn't mean no, never. It just means most of the time, no. And, they grew up on hummus and avocado and vegetables and weird foods that their kids at the lunch table would make fun of. But, to this day, my son's favorite snack is hummus. So it's one of those things that you train them up in the way that they should go. And when they're older, they don't depart from it. So that's my hope for them. So that's kind of my journey, how I got here.
Well, this is wonderful. Most people don't go to school to become a naturopathic doctor. They just so that's pretty admirable of yours. You just went from being a mom to being a rock star, basically.
Oh,
So
professional student, right? That's what we always should be a student of everybody.
I
So,
agree. I totally agree. I call myself a curious student of life. And, that's one of the introductions that I do when I give, public speaking is, it's like how many of us are a curious student? And that's the problem. And that we're not, that we are relying on what we hear. We're relying on our friends, our families, our doctors. I call it the white coat trance that we hear and obey. And unfortunately, and I just had this conversation with family member about how um, they pretty much know everything about fluoride and they know everything about and dismissed the science because there's nothing out there. And just because we research it and we get exactly what they want us to see doesn't mean that other things don't exist. And so that's why I was so excited about starting with God's Pharmacy and then moving up to peptides if we have the time. So when it comes to, and the pharmacy is Farm, pharmacy, not the PH, it's the FARM. And
right.
so with that in mind, what are some of the things that you've learned and grown? You've gotten your certification, your doctorate on this, but now you're trying it out on your children. And so with that in mind, what are some of the things that we as moms, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, can kind of take on from your learning lessons that you've embarked in?
Well, goodness. I mean, one of the things I think we got away from was asking our moms how to take care of kids. It's very quick for people to call a pediatrician. And let's just go there. Pediatricians were not in existence until the 1930s. There was no specialization for children. And that actually happened due to just the Flexner report and how it changed all of the medical society. We went from homeopathic and herbal schools to medical schools that taught pharmacology. And then we started to segment the body, into different systems rather than looking at the whole person and how they responded. And then we started to segment them from, big people to little people. And there are differences, but all in all, a child's immune system and overall ability to recover is much, much faster. And what happened was when we started to go to these experts in children, pediatricians, and nothing against pediatricians, I mean, they have their place, but well visits became the standard. And why would you take your kid to a doctor when they're well? It doesn't make sense. It's an oxymoron. And so they became the experts over children rather than my mom who raised me and her mom who raised her and her mother who raised her. I mean, I made it, my mom made it, my grandma made it. They must have done something right. And they got through it all those generations ago without a pediatrician. So why are we not calling our moms and asking about what is normal and what's not normal? Second, there's so many things that we overcomplicate in health. I mean, health has become so extremely complicated. You can't even make a decision as a parent on your own. You're absolutely terrified you're going to make the wrong decision because no one has built confidence in you. that you as a mom or a dad know that child better than anybody. Anybody. You're going to take that child to a complete stranger who doesn't interact with that baby day after day after day like you do and ask them what they think is wrong. You all probably know what is wrong already, right? And then they're going to give you some sort of antibiotic. I mean, in my generation, we got a shot of penicillin, the bubble gum antibiotic, and out the door we went. So that was the treatment. And everybody got a lollipop just because you were really good and you didn't cry that long when you got your shot. Now it's different. They call the pediatrician, they go in, there's not necessarily antibiotics given, but they're big fever repressors. So there's just natural innate immune responses that kids have and that parents know, as long as they're within a safe range, you can handle at home. And so the way this book came to pass and why I wrote it was because everybody would call me at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, little Jimmy's sick, what do I do? And so I actually created this as a webinar, and it was called the Mommy Apothecary webinar. And it was basically, if you're going to call me at 10:30, 11 at night and you don't have anything on hand, I need to teach you how to make something from your kitchen, right? Your garlic, your onion. So all of that home remedies in the kitchen. And then we have to talk about what you have from maybe the pharmacy, such as peroxide or, what else do you have? Essential oils? Do you have any clays, binders, spices? What do you have over the counter? A thermometer, an orthoscope, right? An otoscope. We can look in the ears and see what's going on. What supplements do you have? Are you familiar with homeopathy? What about essential oils? What about binders? What about clays? What about Epsom salts? Like just any of the old school remedies that we can use that God has given us and has been passed down for centuries that we just put to the wayside now so that we can run to the pediatrician. And 80% of what's wrong with a child or your family can be taken care of at home. The problem is 80% of people run to a hospital. They get over medicated, over treated, or maybe even not treated at all, and sent back home with a level of hopelessness and helplessness because they don't know what to do. So, my goal is to really empower moms and dads to understand that they themselves, with God, have an innate ability. They created that child. They know that child. Now, I'm not saying you should never take a child in for an emergency situation, but most of the things that we deal with can be helped at home for sure, with simple things that you have on hand already and simple things that you can stock up on.
Well, I love how you've taken us through that because I've said this over and over again. Our families have been broken down to a sitcom. It was all about friends. It's all about, you never saw the mother or the father. If you look at Disney movies, you'll see that the mother is gone or dead, or, there's a wicked stepmother. So, we've been formed to believe that, friends are more important than parenting. That question of what should I do, mom? I remember my mom would always offer her opinion and what to do, but there's a generation, there came a time where the generation was like told, TV dinners are good, let's do processed foods are good, and this pill is going to cure every ill. And some people bought it. Some people bought it, and my mom bought it, my dad bought it, and they started now switching us from the natural stuff that we were on to taking that pill, reducing the fever, doing all this stuff. And when I talk to my children now and I say, if they have a fever, let them have a fever. But there's that threshold that you just don't want to go past. But if they're not convulsing, and if you've known that at 102, 103, they're still coherent, then that's the body doing its thing. But that would be considered malpractice if I were to say that out loud to anybody else. So how do you get beyond things like this? How do you calm a parent down to say your child has a fever? Good, the body's doing what it needs.
Yeah, it's just about teaching them what to look for because
Yep.
they're not educated. When you have a baby in the hospital, there's nobody that walks in and says, okay, during the first week, this is what you expect. And during the second week, this is what you expect. And here's what you look for in their poo. And here's what you look for with dirty diapers and wet diapers and how many diapers should be wet a day. And here's what to look for if they're feeding well, eating well. Here's what to do if they're gassy. No one does that. You
Mhm.
know what they do? They chase you around. They make sure you sign all your papers and get all your shots and pick your pediatrician, and then you're schlepped out the door in about a day.
Mhm.
There's no nurturing of women or men in our society when it comes to being a mom or a dad in the way that we really need to be doing it.
Mhm.
So when a parent calls me, it's some typical questions. What's the fever? How fast did it climb? That's a big one because it's not really, I mean, I'm not saying it's not how high it is, but let me just say what a fever is. Okay. The fever is a way of raising the body temperature in order to make whatever the bacteria or virus is uncomfortable and make the environment unfavorable. And so what that does then is that will create an apoptosis, a destruction of the infected cells. That's what you want. I mean, how does God purify us in the Bible? With fire, not Tylenol. It's not like, oh, it was purified with Tylenol. No, that doesn't happen. It's fire, right? So that's important that God gives us these little nuggets in there where we're like, oh, we're purified with fire. That's why we go through trials. So a fever is not bad. It's part of your innate immune system. And when
Mhm.
there's a fire, the immune system goes, oh, something's wrong. We need to send the fire trucks. We have to send these little macrophage type 1 and 2 to go take care of that fire, to put it out, and then we have to rebuild the structure. All of that happens innately before there's an adaptive mechanism. There's no adaptive immune system happening at this point. It's just innate. It's God-given fingerprint of what my biological temperature should be, what my cells should be, everything, without one little antibody being made yet. It's just God's design. Wow. So what do? We repress it. We repress God's design. No, no, no. Man can do it better. We're going to manipulate it. And so what happens is that child gets sicker and sicker and sicker because the fever never gets to do what it's going to do. Second, when it comes to warming the body, let's just talk about Annie Appleseed, right? And cancer. Cancer is a big thing. Everyone's
I was
scared
going
of.
to talk about hyperthermia. It's like
Right.
that's so
Hyperthermia.
wonderful.
Yeah. So when we talk about that, one of the complementary modalities that they use for cancer is mistletoe. And the reason is it came from research that was done back in the
Mhm.
1900s,
Yeah.
early 1900s, where they found that people that got an infection with a fever, maybe they had a cut on their arm or they had an abscess on their leg, if they had a cancer diagnosis and got this infection from something else and a fever, it cured their cancer. I mean, come on, from a fever. So, what mistletoe does is warm the body, right? So, the same thing happens in God's design. It's warming your body so that it can kill whatever it needs to kill. Now, fevers that raise too quickly, they're dangerous. If you go from 99 to 104 very fast, that's usually where seizures happen because the body can't warm that fast. That's like gently putting a pot of water on the stove or hitting it with a blowtorch. I mean, two different components of heat. The other thing is prolonged fevers, which will cause dehydration, which is really what the issue is. So I'll ask the parent, how high is the fever? How quickly did it raise? How long has he had it? How long has that child been at that temperature, 102, 103? If they say a few hours, I'm okay with it. If they say days, my next question is, are they lethargic? Do they look like they're just too tired to do anything, exhausted? And they're like, well, they're okay. Are they responsive? Are they talking to you? Are they making sense? So you want all that. Now, some kids will get a fever and have like dreams, almost like hallucinations. That's okay. What I'm talking about is responsiveness to certain questions, like what's your name? Jimmy. Okay, so we get a good responsiveness. And then I ask about hydration levels. Have they urinated in the last day, in the last 10 hours, 12 hours? When was the last time that you noticed that? Especially if there's vomiting associated. The biggest thing is dehydration for kids. That is the biggest risk when it comes to high fevers and sickness because, their little bodies, they don't want to eat or drink or do anything. With
And
that
it's
said, it's difficult, but there are certain questions that we can ask mom and dads to make them more comfortable that they're making the right decisions. And I always tell them, if you're scared and you want to take them in or call the pediatrician, of course you can do that. I mean, if it's going to make them feel better, that's okay.
sure.
But I don't want them to feel that they're doing something wrong. Because most of the time they're going to take them into the pediatrician, they're going to say, oh, it's a virus, and they're going to send them home. So,
Well, it's amazing how many doctors, even though it's a virus, give antibiotics.
yeah, that's true.
Why? Why are you giving them antibiotics? I mean, it's so it's accepted. It's accepted. And then next thing you know, this child is, either developed a rash or developed an immunity to that particular strain of penicillin or antibiotic. But so you were talking about the fast fevers. That's really neat. I didn't know that. That's a really good point that you're looking at these. Now, are you, because I believe that you do telemedicine, do all your patients, are they through telemedicine or do you have a location that you can see patients?
It's 90% telehealth. And I do have some clients because I used to have a clinic in town where they could come see me. Now, as you can tell, I have kids and dogs, and my life's a little bit different. So my office is in my home. So unless I really, really know you, I don't always bring you in.
Mhm.
Now, if it's something I need to see, I will request that you come in. Like, because there is something to touch when you touch a person's hand, their body
Mm.
temperature, if they're cold sweating, they're hot, there is something to that in person. I'm not saying that it's not good, but primarily telehealth is really what I do.
No, and it's great because for anybody who's listening today, they would be able to reach out to you. I will have, if you are a subscriber to the website, then you have all of Dr. Tracey Stroup's information that you can just click her name and it'll take you right to her website. So with that in mind, when you have a child and you're concerned about the child and the fact that you calm the parent down, that education is invaluable because nothing good comes from fear. And I believe that that is the manipulation that you're talking about the most when people go to a doctor, especially since you brought up cancer, fear is how we are manipulated. You've got to, if you have cancer, and let's talk about cancer now. If you have cancer, you've got to get chemotherapy and radiation like 3 weeks ago, and you just found out today. And so, can you also calm people down that have received a diagnosis or are concerned that they have cancer? What is your pearls for these people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I can't make any I can't tell somebody what to do
Yeah,
100%
yeah.
of the time.
And
But
you're not talking like a doctor to them. You're not their
no, no, no.
doctor.
Right, I'm a healthcare professional, but I'm not your healthcare professional, right? Not yet.
Mhm.
But here's the thing, you have time. It's not this second. And I think what happens is you come and you sit in that chair and you're so overwhelmed with the information you just received that you just want somebody to speak hope. And that next sentence of hope comes with, we have a plan, we have a treatment, and we can help you.
Mhm.
So we're going to start treatment tomorrow, and you need to tell your family, and you need to come back here at 8 in the morning. There's just no time to think. So when my assistant was diagnosed, I was away at an event and she called me and immediately they were like double mastectomy, we're starting radiation and chemo. And I was like, they didn't even look, we didn't even do a mammogram yet or a biopsy. I'm like, what are we doing? Like they just said it. So I said to her, no, you're going home and we're going to pray on it. You have time. You're okay. And she did. And we went home and I told her, stop at my house, get these things, and we're going to pray. And I'm going to call all of my colleagues that I know and I'm going to ask them for advice. And then I'm going to call you back. So, number one, you have time to go home and pray about it, even if it's that night. Number two, go to a bigger hospital that sees many cases. Here's the thing that happened to her, it was a small town hospital. They probably don't see a lot of cancer cases. And if they do, they scare them like that, then send them off to a bigger hospital, and then that oncologist will send them home. She would have been sent home at a larger hospital that saw her condition. But at the little tiny hospital that she was at, they scared her to death. They just scared her. Like, I mean, and I have to say there was some HIPAA compliance that wasn't happening because they were talking to other staff members that knew her. So it was kind of like a violation there, but let's not leave that off the table. But so that happened. And number three, get a second opinion. Go to another, if you want to stay within that system, go to another oncologist and get another opinion. It's not going to hurt to have somebody else review your scans, look at your mammogram, your testing, whatever it is that you had done. So that is probably the biggest things that I would say. Slow down, make sure that you pray, get another opinion, and get to a larger facility that sees the type of cancer that you've been diagnosed with, and they see many, many cases. So it's not a small town mindset who doesn't see it.
So you mentioned biopsy, that they didn't do a biopsy, they didn't do a mammogram or even thermography or anything to that effect. They immediately were ready from cancer to double breast, mastectomy. Um, so let's talk about biopsy. I've interviewed many people, and they're basically saying biopsies are bad. I've interviewed many people that say, well, at least it's a starting point. It's good to know. And the risk is the risk does not outweigh the benefits. So in your research and what you feel comfortable with and your career as a practitioner, naturopathic doctor, what is your research for you as far as biopsies go?
Yeah, so when that all occurred, we elected to get a biopsy because obviously in the beginning of this journey, I think what happens is you're advised lots of things, and she was scared. So
Hmm.
we immediately went after and had ozone done though. So
Hmm.
scavenge up those cells. So what people worry about is something's going to get out and circulate. Yes, there's an encapsulation, and you're
Hmm.
going to hear a lot of schools of opinion on this. However, there are things that you can do after the biopsy, like ozone, that will help scavenge up anything that you are fearing is circulating.
Okay.
Second, when we look at tumors and how they work, the tumor is actually going to emit signals to the immune system to keep it contained, right? The body's really intelligent.
Hmm.
When you have the tumor removed completely, there's no more signal. Signal's gone. But is the root cause gone? No. So what happens later? You get another one. So when you're dealing, from what I've learned from the great greats that were at the Annie Appleseed, when they work with tumors and destroying a tumor, they only destroy part of it. So they're still breaking it open, but the body is so smart that it still signals to the body that that tumor's there, and it activates it to destroy it. So if we look at a biopsy, we're puncturing this tumor, you're not taking it out, there's still signaling going on. I don't fully believe that a biopsy is going to create more issues. I believe that if it's a substantial tumor and you need to have answers on pathways of what you need to do, whether you're choosing conventional treatment or alternative, we still need to know mechanisms and what's happening. It's important. You can get so far and you don't have to do it out of the gate either. You can change lifestyle. You can do all these things and see how far you get. And then sometimes you can actually take a piece of that tumor and have it sent away genetically, and it'll tell you exactly what medications and or complementary protocols would work for that. So there is benefit at the right time, but if you're not comfortable doing it out of the gate, no one's forcing you to. You don't have to. You can change a lot of things and get a lot of great results without it. But if you do come to a point where you're stuck or you're not progressing, that might be the time that you consider it. As one of the doctors on stage, and I can't remember who said it, there is a level of measuring any type of treatment, any type, whether it's alternative or conventional. There's a level of measuring what is the risk, what is the side effect, what will this do to my body, what will it do financially, to my family, to my time, all of that. You have to measure all of it. It's not just this purist mindset of I choose chemo or I choose no.
Yeah.
There is a balance of somebody going through it, because I work with a ton of people that have that diagnosis. And the very first conversation I have with them is, I will support you. Whatever you want to do, I'll walk with you in
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I will give you the information and the facts, but I am going to ask you, what can you do? What will you do? And what can you afford to do? Because the journey of alternative is expensive. It's very expensive. And sometimes the stress of that is worse for people than going through conventional treatment. So I am nobody's judge and jury. I just walk with them as a servant as they walk through this. So biopsies, I'm okay with at the right time for the right reason, but not as part of just this cookie cutter method that they do. And everybody needs one. I don't
Yeah.
think everybody needs one.
Yeah. Earlier you talked about getting a second opinion. And I think it's unfortunate that when we get a second opinion, we go to the exact same salesman that tried to sell you the chemotherapy to begin with. And so sometimes I ask them if they would be curious about it or interested in it. Is there a another person that they can go to, whether it's a naturopath or functional doctor, someone that is, that has maybe a homeopathic oncologist or like Dr. James Forsyth, who I just absolutely adored. I don't know if you knew who he was, but he was an MD oncologist that noticed that the corner store, homeopathic store in the corner was doing better business than he was and getting them better. And so he said, let me just walk over there and find out what they're doing. And then he became a homeopathic oncologist, which and he could only I don't know if you know him, but he could only work on people that had stage 4 cancer. In order for him to keep his vision, they were sent home to die, and that was his little niche. That was where he captured. And
Wow.
what people don't understand is that there is a cost, out-of-pocket cost, when your insurance tells you where to go. There is out-of-pocket costs.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
may and it may be just as expensive or more expensive than the out-of-pocket expenses of a natural or holistic, functional, integrative, and it might be. So, like you said, it's so good that you're stopping them to look at what can you afford? Because if the average out-of-pocket expense for chemo is 100,000 and you're going to a program that's going to cost you maybe 50,000 or 45,000, I would say the out-of-pocket expenses, that it would be for the natural, not to have an insurance company dictate where I go. But I love that pause that you do with your patients that you say, okay, let's look at everything before we jump into the water, into the frying pan, or so to speak. So that's really good that you're doing that. Also, so w when it comes to somebody getting the opinion, once let's say they want to do conventional treatment, um, do you also encourage them to do some alternatives that will help them with coping with whatever they've chosen?
Absolutely. You want to protect the pathways, right? Sometimes I get a lot of kids and they're kind of medically just pulled in. They don't have a choice as parents. Once there's a diagnosis, there's a lot of states that the parents don't have a choice
They
to say
lose their
no.
right. Yes, they
That's
lose
right.
their right.
So
And
there's,
villainized. I don't mean to interrupt, but villainized by the media and
oh
the
yeah,
community. Yeah.
like you're neglecting them if you don't poison them with something, right?
Yeah.
So, sorry. So yes, protecting the pathways is key. Foundations, nutrition, hydration, movement, sleep, elimination, emotional, spiritual wellness, all of that matters. And everybody benefits from that. I don't care what term people are putting over you. I don't care what disease, what diagnoses you have, you will benefit from, eating right, thinking right, moving right, pooping right, praying right, sleeping right, doing all those things right. Your body regenerates on the foundations, just like, Jesus built his church on a strong foundation. We build our temple on one. So that's first. And then there are complementary modalities that have been researched. And I mentioned mistletoe earlier. I'll mention it again. Hundreds of years of clinical studies on this, complementing the traditional, conventional care, reduction in side effects, overall well-being, feeling good. I've had a lot of clients that went through chemo and worked with me, and guess what? Their hair didn't fall out. They weren't throwing up all the time. They could have conversations with their oncologist because there is a way that, you can talk to a doctor that isn't challenging them and what they know, but actually helping them learn more about how they can care for their patients. And so I encourage my clients to have discussions with their oncologist about what they're doing with me. so that number one, they can learn. Number two, they're aware. I mean, these oncologists don't get in like, mwah, ha, ha, I can't wait to poison people. They want to help. They just don't know any other way yet. The light bulb hasn't gone off like your friend who was standing across the street wondering what those people were doing. And hopefully, as this integrative and complementary care model starts to emerge, the oncology side of it will catch on. We see it in cardiovascular, we see it in diabetes, we see it in you know, neurodivergent issues. Now we need to see it in cancer, right? And it's not just go home, eat whatever you want, just make sure he keeps weight on. Now we understand the biological, physiological, and that microenvironment of the cell matters. So it is important that you do complementary protocols with, I'll say it 100%, with any type of conventional treatment. It will change the experience and probably enhance the outcome.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that there's a calmness and gentleness about you. And I would love to explore that emergency kit that you encourage your patients to have. And I heard you talk about garlic, and I'm telling you, when I learned about garlic, any sign of sore throat, itchiness, whatever, I just pop in a little bit of garlic and I put it in my teeth. And I always apologize to the people around me. And then I let people know that the benefit of garlic is not only does it take away your sore throat, like to me, it's instant. It's like an antibiotic on booster. But you also keep the vampires away. And that's very important in our life to keep these like life suckers that drain us in so many different ways. So let's talk about this kit before we talk about peptides. And I'm just wanting to see what are some of the things that you have in your home in your emergency kit for your family.
Well, you start in the kitchen, right? That's easy because, as you said, garlic, oh my, have we forgot about that? And especially during the pandemic when people were afraid to go into the hospitals, they didn't want to go. So they would call me and I made up these little emergency kits that had a bunch of supplements in it. It had instructions on how to do garlic enemas using fleet enemas. And people are like, enemas? Oh my gosh. I'm like, well, it's either that or go to the hospital because they were very, very sick. And anything that you put into a little fleet enema and you put it into the back door will circulate through your entire bloodstream in 4 minutes. And garlic, 4 cloves of garlic, is equivalent to the power of an antibiotic. So if you are looking at secondary infection, pneumonia, et cetera, it's important to have that kitchen medicine. Cayenne. Cayenne is another one. Just looking at your kitchen medicine. So incredible. Can stop bleeding, can stop a heart attack. So always one of those essentials. And we can keep going. Onion, so easy. Kids that have fevers, sinus issues, you can take a big slice of onion, put it on the bottom of your feet, put socks over it, and just let it there. It'll draw all of that out, all that sinus issue, infection, etc. One of my favorite non-kitchen is colloidal silver, and that's probably one that many people know about now, but was kind of new, 10 years ago. And this is just ionized silver. I like a structured silver because it's bound to the water molecule and it does not stay behind because you hear the word silver and you think that it's a metal, which it is. But it's a unique form of water and it's purified with electric current vibration to neutralize toxins. So if you look at the body, it's all charges, right? Like a bacteria or an adjuvant has a positive charge where the remedy to it could have a negative charge. And that's basically what ionized silver is. And so it comes in a liquid, it's tasteless. I joke around and tell people you can put it in any hole. So you can put it in your eyes, you can put it into a nasal sprayer and use it for sinus. You can put it in your ears, you can put it vaginally, anally, like whatever you need to do with it, the body will know what to do. And so when it
Interesting.
yeah, it's probably the hands down thing I'll tell people. If you can't afford anything else, make sure you have garlic, mint, basil, cayenne. I'll go through the kitchen things because they're going to have them anyway. I was like, and have a bottle of silver in your house because you can use it for anything, anything.
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
an infection somewhere, you can use it. Like it's amazing. So those are some of the things that I recommend to have on hand. Other things that I always recommend to have on hand is some sort of aloe vera. Again, my grandmother had a giant aloe vera
I have
plant.
one too.
So do I. I call him Big Al, right? He's huge.
Mine is Allie. Mine is Allie.
We
And
could make.
she's so big. She's so big now.
Yeah. But what do, right? You have a blemish on your skin, you can use aloe. You can use it as a face tonic. You can dilute it out. You can sip it for any type of digestive issues. If you have a burn, obviously. If you have a cut, obviously. Aloe is wonderful. It's just so antibacterial, antimicrobial. It helps with skin regeneration, and it's wonderful. So those are a couple things. Systemic enzymes. We make enzymes in our digestive systems, and that helps us break down food. But when our stomach's empty, we can take certain enzymes, and I think Dr. Peter McCullough wrote a whole article on nattokinase, which is a systemic enzyme talking
Hmm.
about the
Hmm.
spike. But I've been using enzymes since God was a boy. I use them for everything, primarily to break biofilms down on multi-drug resistant bacteria. So if you think of what those are, things like H. pylori, Lyme disease, which is Borrelia, any type of gram-negative bacteria, MRSA, all of that stuff, you can use systemic enzymes, but you can also just use them to help an ear infection or a swollen ankle, because enzymes are construction workers. They're going to go build what needs to be built and break down what shouldn't be there. And that includes any type of inflammation or infection and any type of biofilm. Because a biofilm, just so people are aware, what wraps around a bacteria and hides it from our immune system is just made of sugar. Why would a biofilm be made of sugar? Because then when it goes near your cells, your GLUT4 receptors are going to pull it in like glucose for energy. Now that cell's infected. So when you use an enzyme to break down a biofilm, the enzyme just munches away the sugar. And guess what happens next? Your immune system's like, oh, there's a bacteria, go get it. It sends out antibodies and it does its job. And so all of these things have been around for centuries that we can use with a lot of science behind them. There's a lot of studies on systemic enzymes. Colloidal silver has been studied for bacteria, fungus, and viruses.
Hmm.
That's one of the most potent things for it. So it's not just woo.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about that because when I was at the Annie Appleseed Conference, there was a silver vendor there, and I absolutely adore this person. And I said colloidal silver, and he said, "That's not what we are. We're bioactive silver." Is that just the same, a different name to describe colloidal silver? Because he says colloidal silver is more topical, he's bioactive, and it's more fast acting. So, is there any difference to that?
All silver is colloidal silver.
All
All.
silver is colloidal. So that's what I
But
thought.
then, yeah, but I think marketing is key, right? So you want to be like, oh no, we're not just colloidal silver. So there is a difference from somebody making a colloidal silver in their garage with a generator.
Hmm.
Okay, that half-life of that silver is only going to be maybe a couple of hours. You can take it, and in a couple hours, it's out of your system. The other thing is it has to be pure silver. So you have to watch the backyard silver makers. Nothing against it if you make your own, but you just have to watch because sometimes you're not getting pure silver. It can be wrapped up with some nickel or some other metals. And that's where you get the risk of turning blue because you
Mm.
get unpurified silver. Okay. So the half-life is really determined on the electrolysis of that silver, how you're electrically stimulating it, and then the purity. So the short half-life is short-term use. You can still use it, but you're not going to use it for a chronic issue.
Hmm.
Then you have things that are like nano structured or bioactive, like your friend was saying. So nanoparticles or nanosilver, which is more bioactive. These are silver nanoparticles that are extremely small. And so this allows for full penetration
Hmm.
of a microbial cell wall and can interact at the genetic level. So that takes a little bit more science. And a little bit more experienced manufacturer. So that's probably what your friend was talking about, that his lasted longer, it could penetrate deeper, all of the things that they probably say. And then you have the
Absolutely.
structured nano, which they take the really tiny particles, but they're bound to a water molecule. And when they're bound to a water molecule, they can't stay behind and gather as a heavy metal. That's the one that I use because I deal with a lot of kids that have, any type of comp issues, the COMT mutation or MTHFR, and some of those mamas are not comfortable with silver because it's a metal.
Mhm.
So structured nano is what I go for.
Good.
Uh, that's what I like.
No, 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 that's wonderful, wonderful. So before we continue our conversation, I want to just take a little break to talk about my website and also talk about Dr. Straup's website as well. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. This is where we stop and take ownership for our life and do the research. Don't believe a word that we're saying. Do your own research so it becomes your truth too, like it's become my truth and Dr. Straup's truth as well. We've done the research and we are a living example of what could happen when you just are curious and decide that you want to change your life and be a generational pattern shifter. And maybe ask your mom once in a while about some of the things that she used to do when you were a little kid. So I want to encourage you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. When you go there, please subscribe to the website. If you're a subscriber to the channel, to the website, then you have all of Dr. Tracey Stroup's information. All you have to do is click her name and it will take you there. You can just click the name of the book, it'll take you there. And I am just excited that you have that opportunity to do so. So make sure that you subscribe to the website, like and follow me on all social media. Make sure that you support our sponsors the way that they're supporting the classroom. And you can go to my Shop Now bag. These are all Lilly approved products from head to toe so that you can make that commitment to yourself to be as healthy as you can. At least you have some form of a referral that everything that's on there, I do for myself. And so I love all these products. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation of your time, your talent, or treasure, sharing this video with all the people that you know and say, listen to this, be curious, not critical about it. And maybe start incorporating little things like maybe just chewing on garlic and seeing how that sore throat goes away. And so just, adding a little bit of garlic, honey, and lemon, wow, all of a sudden you start experiencing even better results for yourself. And so just check out just check out the social media and like it, make a comment, share it, and let's continue to grow together. And one last thing, I want to remind you that on November 1st, I'm going to be hosting the I Am the Solution Natural Health Summit for Cancer and Autoimmune Disease. So write your calendar to come to Florida in November so that we can learn and grow together as a family, not just on the air, but as a family in a community live. And so mark your calendar, and I hope that you will be able to join us. Now, today we have Tracey Stroup. She's a naturopathic doctor. She's Dr. Tracey. You can reach her at TraceyStroupND.com. And like I said, her information is on the blog that you get every Sunday of all the people that are in the classroom, all the teachers in the classroom. So you can just click it there and you can support her for giving all this wonderful information to you. So is there anything going on that we need to know about your website or anything that you have going on at this time that they can find on your website?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find us over there if they want telehealth or education. We have a full academy. So we do everything from practitioner education to just lay people education. They can come over and check out the courses. We're always doing metabolic enhancing programs and, dealing with chronically sick people. So, would love to get to know you if you need any help on whatever level and, would be happy to work with you.
That's wonderful. It is amazing how this package that you did for the mommy's apothecary, this would be a great gift for a pregnant mom, for someone who's starting life and just bringing it to as a gift, because this is the gift that keeps on giving. It really is. So, is there anything that like how are peptides? Because I've been hearing peptides more and more, and you went through a litany of peptides when I heard you speak, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But you're not talking about these massive doses of peptides, are you? You're just talking about a smaller amount, right?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, when people get a hold of them in the pharmaceutical area of life, things get bad. So peptides have been around for decades, and in functional and integrative medicine, they have used them as injectables for lots of different things. So when this whole GLP-1 thing hit the market, every integrative practitioner was taken aback. Those who understood peptides were mortified by the fact that they were overdosing people without any guidance. Peptides were never given as a first-line therapy, ever. They're given as a tertiary therapy. You start with foundations, and then you do supplements, and you do the things, and then maybe peptides if you need them, because they're just bridges. The only way that they'll work by themselves without any foundational support is if you overdose them, which is what happened with the GLP-1s. And so we saw this stuff hit the market. But my whole thing with peptides is they're naturally made in your body. And when you're deficient in them, you will have metabolic issues. And cancer is a metabolic issue, as well as it is a microenvironment issue, as well as it's an immune issue. So you can't just address one pathway towards overcoming cancer. You have to address them all. And peptides have a place, whether they're oral or injectable. And I think the big one on the market now, which now is called Ozempic through the pharmaceutical, it's not called that in functional medicine. It's called semaglutide, which is what the peptide is called. That's a GLP-1. And then there's tirzepatide, which is both GLP-1 and GIP. You make all of those incretin hormones, GLP-1 and GIP, in your gut. You make them every day, every time you eat. When people are deficient, they don't make them. And so they become metabolically broken and become sick, whether that sickness manifests itself as cancer, obesity, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, neurodegenerative disease, ALS, MS, you name it. So they're not a bad thing. They're actually a God-given thing innately in our body. Unfortunately, manipulated yet again for vanity and profit. They have really got a bad rap. It's unfortunate because they're very beneficial. So that could be a whole podcast in itself.
Well, maybe you can come back for that. But what I'd like to know for people that have, because we've discovered now metabolic disease, when your mitochondrial is damaged, your whole body is damaged. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to the two that you mentioned for that are produced in the stomach for releasing weight and staying healthy, what if somebody has like low acid in their stomach? Is that something that you would recommend to help improve it or not?
Well, I would probably recommend enzymes and betaine hydrochloride for low acid in their stomach. And I would look at their liver and I would change their diet. And I would probably calm down their neurological system, because the reason they have low acid is because they're a stinking thinker and they're overthinking and they're stressed. Your body just doesn't not produce acid. So GLP-1s actually are from the L cells of the digestive system, which the integrity of the gut, the microbiota, your probiotics, the inflammation, the foods you eat all determine how well you produce them. Stomach acid is one contributor. So no, I wouldn't recommend it for someone who had low stomach acid.
Enzymes.
Most people that are experiencing side effects is because of the massive dose. If I gave you a whole bottle of vitamin C and told you to take the whole thing today, you'd be in the bathroom for the next 3 days, probably cursing my name. It doesn't make the vitamin C bad. It made me a bad practitioner for recommending something to you that was overdosing it,
Hmm.
even though it has a good point and a purpose in general health. Vitamin C, I mean, we don't make vitamin C. We're the only animal that doesn't make vitamin C. We need to actually take it. But I give it to you at 10,000 grams a day, you're not going to be happy with me.
Mm-mm.
So that's the same thing that happened. When people are doing GLP-1s and GIPs, if they're listening, there's nothing wrong with that. There's probably a good chance that you were deficient in it and you were metabolically broken. What I would recommend is find a practitioner that will do a foundations for you, adjust your nutrition, your macros, get your hormones balanced, fix your gut so you can produce your own so that you don't have to be on it forever. And then make sure that you do the emotional and spiritual work too, that has kind of got you into the position of, sympathetic and fight or flight nervous system.
Yeah.
All of that needs addressed. It's not just about the peptide.
Well, this was dipping the toe and getting to know you better. For all of you who are new to the classroom or that are been with the classroom for the last 14 years, you're going, hmm. So today we're learning who Dr. Tracey Stroup is, and so you too can just click on her name on the in the blog, and it'll take you straight there, and you can start your journey with her. And hopefully, we can have more conversations in the classroom about these things because this has been fascinating. I love your calmness and the way that the rational and logic that you're using, that I hope that someone who feels that they have to take that pill and not change anything about their lifestyle or not address any traumas in their past or connect to a higher power. I hope that today this will be the day that they can say, you know what? I think I'm going to be curious today to try something different and new. So thank you so much, Dr. Stroup, for everything that you do to bring this awareness. And I'm looking forward to more conversations with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom today, make sure you share this video. Let people understand that there's different ways to achieve the health that they want. And this is just one of many pathways that you can take. And please remember, we're right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyounneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Tracey Stroup wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.